How's it going, guys, and welcome back to another video. I am super excited because today we are finally working on something I've been meaning to do for such a long time now, and that is wiring up a switch to turn traction control on and off. Now this should work on all first gen Sequoias, and I'm going to show you a super easy and quick way for around $10 to wire up the switch so you can turn traction control on and off from the inside of your Sequoia. Now if you just want a super quick way to turn traction control on and off through the engine bay, there's actually a way you can do this. I'm going to cut now and show you guys in 5 seconds how you can quickly disconnect traction control. So this is how you disable traction control in just about 5 seconds. Come to the driver's side of the vehicle. You can find the brake master cylinder right up here. There's a little gray connector down on the right side. All you have to do is just disconnect that. Traction control will now be turned off. If you're going to be driving in mud or snow or any wet or dirty conditions, sometimes I do like to kind of cover this in electrical tape just to make sure it stays clean. And then that's it, guys. This is all you have to do to turn traction control off. As soon as you want it back on, just go ahead and plug it back in. You do have to turn the vehicle off, start it again, and traction control will be back and re-engaged. So simple as that. This is the quick and easy way to turn traction control off. All right, so now that you've seen the easy way to turn traction control on and off, I first just want to talk a little bit about what traction control is and why we would want to turn it off. So traction control is super great in slippery conditions when you're driving in snow and ice, and its goal is to pretty much prevent you from sliding, prevent you from slipping. As soon as the traction control kind of senses your tires or wheels spinning and losing traction, it works by kind of limiting power. It's a lot more complicated than that, and I'm not going to be the best at explaining exactly how it works, but you can think of it as kind of trying to work and stop those tires from slipping, stop those tires from sliding, and lots of times it does this by limiting your power. It's super good at what it does, but we don't always want it turned on. So now I want to talk a little bit about why we're wiring up a switch and why you might want to turn traction control off. Now on lots of my truck camping adventures, especially in deeper snow and off-roading, I almost always have traction control off. The reason I do this is lots of times I'm going to use kind of driving in deeper snow as an example here, but on some of the trips there's been 1 foot or 2 feet of snow, and really the only way I was able to get through that deep snow was by having traction control off. Now if I had traction control on and I was trying to drive through 1 foot or 2 feet of snow, as soon as those tires started slipping, as soon as they lost traction, I would lose power and I would just kind of get stuck. I wouldn't be able to push my way through the deeper snow. Now with traction control turned off, however, the RPMs can still climb, the Sequoia doesn't stop, it doesn't get stuck, it doesn't cut the power at all, and I'm able to keep those tires spinning, I'm able to keep pushing, and that's really the only way I was able to get through some of that super deep snow was by having traction control turned off. Today I want to show you guys a super quick and super easy way for only about $10 to wire up a switch to the inside of the Sequoia so you can quickly turn this on and off. There's not really a great way to disable traction control other than disconnecting it through the engine bay on these vehicles. So today I'm going to show you guys how you can quickly wire in the switch to turn traction control on and off with just the flip of a switch. So let's go ahead and get started with that. You're only going to need 3 items today. I've linked them all in the description of this video. These are affiliate links, so if you use these links to purchase the items, you're also helping to support my channel, so I really do appreciate it. But you're just going to need a little on-off toggle switch. You're going to need some 18 gauge lamp wire, and then just some type of wire connector. I'm going to be testing out these solder wire connectors today. They work by just using a heat gun or some type of heating source. To warm them up, it has a little bit of solder on the inside that melts and helps connect them all together. So you don't have to use these, you can use any type of wire connector. But I have all of these linked in the description, and these are all the items you're going to need. Now I don't know if you technically have to do this, but I am also just going to disconnect the battery just to be safe since we're going to be working with wires here. Alrighty, so we're going to be working up here by the brake master cylinder today, working with this little plug connector here. Like I showed you guys earlier, by disconnecting this plug here, it turns off traction control. So all we're really going to do is to snip this wire and just run some of our wire to the inside and connect it with a switch. I'm also not an electrician, so if you're doing this on video, do it at your own risk. But yeah, I'm going to cut this top one, I'm going to cut the black one, and this is where we're going to tap into with our new lamp wire. Next thing we're going to do is strip off a little bit of wire on each end here, prep it so that we can connect the lamp wire to each of these ends. The wire here on this connector, I'm pretty sure is 18 gauge, so if you have a wire stripper, you can just snip off some of the insulation on the end and expose some of the bare wire. We're gonna do this on both sides. Alright, so both of the ends have now been stripped. We can now connect the lamp wire to each of those ends. Here is our lamp wire. This is just 18 gauge lamp wire. Now if you're wondering why we are using lamp wire, it's because as you can see the wires are kind of joined together. It's just going to make it a lot cleaner here in the engine bay and easier to run through the firewall as opposed to having two kind of separate individual wires. The lamp wire being connected together is just going to be simpler and a little bit easier. So that's why we're using some lamp wire here. Again, this is 18 gauge. We're just going to split the ends a little bit here, strip off some of the insulation, and then attach one end to each of the exposed wires from our connector here. Just going to peel our lamp wire across just a little bit here, and then we're going to strip off some of the insulation on each end. Alright, there we go. Now we have some exposed wire. Just going to twist these a little bit here. And next we're going to connect each of these wires to one end of the wires on the plug here. It doesn't matter which one goes to which side, we just need to connect these together. Here are the wire connectors that I am going to be using. I've never used these before, but as you can see the little silver in the middle, this is actually solder. So you just use a heat gun to warm it up, the solder melts and it attaches the wires together. So these look awesome, never used them before, but I'm super excited to try them out. If you buy the kit I have linked in the description, they come with a bunch of different sizes, but the red ones from the kit that I bought are the 18 gauge, so I'm just going to grab two of those and connect these wires together. Here is our lamp wire. We're just going to slide this onto the end. We just want to make sure this wire is underneath the solder so that when it melts, it clamps down and connects it together. And now we're going to attach this to one of the exposed ends here on the other side. Make sure that it's again overlapping so that both of the wires are kind of overlapping with each other and underneath the solder. Alright, so that did take a good amount of heat here with the heat gun, but it does look like that solder kind of did warm up. It does take a lot of heat to melt solder. I've worked with solder in the past before. The nice part about solder though is once it cools down here, it'll just turn solid and it forms a super nice connection between these two wires. Let's go ahead and connect the other side of the lamp wire to the other side of this connector. Alright, once that is kind of covered with the solder, go ahead and connect it to the other end. So both of the ends here now are heated up with the heat gun and attached together. One thing I always recommend doing too is just kind of pulling on the end of each of your wire, just making sure that it's nice and secure and you have a good connection. So now that we have these two wires connected, we're going to take the other end of the lamp wire and run it through the firewall to the inside. If you haven't run anything through the firewall before, there's a little grommet here in the back right corner. There might be a little plug on the end if you haven't run anything through before. You can just snip that off and then there will be a little hole where you can run wires through. It might take a little bit of time. Sometimes getting the wire to go through here can be a little challenging, but that's one of the nice parts about the lamp wire. And the fact that they're both connected is that they're a little bit stiffer and that'll make it a little bit easier to get it through. So just go ahead and run the other end of the wire through. I'll show you guys where it comes out and then we'll go on the inside and wire up our switch. Alright, I apologize, it's going to be kind of difficult to film here, but you can see we pulled a bunch of the excess lamp wire through into the inside of the SEQUOIA. The reason I pulled most of it through is just so there's not a ton of excess sitting in the engine bay. Now what we're going to do is mount and install the switch. You can really pick anywhere down below here where you want to install your switch. This is totally up to you. I think my plan though is to go kind of here on this trim piece on the front side of the vehicle, just an area that's easy to reach and somewhere that if I ever want to replace it, this trim piece is super easy to pull off and get a new one. So we're going to go ahead and mount our switch here now. So if you look at our switch here, this is the one that's linked in the description and the one that I bought. It's super simple. All you have to do is drill a hole that's the size of these threads here. The closest drill bit I found was a 3/8, so we're going to start with that. We might need to get a little bit bigger of a hole, but we're going to start with 3/8 because you can always drill a bigger hole. And how it works is it kind of punches through on the end here, and then there's this little plate here, if you guys can see it, and this sandwiches it all together. Then you have this little nut here that kind of just threads on and holds it all into place. So we just need to drill a hole wherever we want. Again, I'm starting with a 3/8 drill bit. We might have to go up in size a little bit, but that's how this switch mounts. Super simple, just sandwiches together. So here's the lamp wire that we sent through. As you can see, we have a ton of excess. We're gonna trim this because I'm gonna be mounting my switch right here in this trim piece, and we just don't need all of this excess wire. So I'm gonna pull the wire roughly to where I think it'll line up. Definitely gonna keep a little bit extra. We don't want to cut this too short, and then we're just gonna cut off the end and get rid of some of this excess wire. So just kind of lining it up, keeping a little bit of slack, and then we'll go ahead and trim it. All right, there we go. Now we can get rid of all of this excess. We do not need that. Same thing as we did in the engine bay. We're gonna peel this apart just like that, so we kind of have two individual strands. Then we're going to trim off some of the insulation and expose some of the bare wire. So let's go ahead and do that on both sides. Alright, there we go. Both of the wires I stripped off some of the end. Now we're going to get two of those solder joint connectors. We're going to connect these to this switch. Alright, so both overlap now. Now let's just use our heat gun and warm this up. It takes a little bit for that solder to cool down once you warm it up. It'll be super shiny when it's nice and warm, and once that cools down, it'll kind of turn more into a matte gray. So I like to hold it in place here a little bit while that cools down and make sure that solder forms a nice solid connection. So I'm just going to pull the trim back and look on the back side, figure out where I want to do this. But I think kind of right in this area is where we'll drill our hole. So now I'm not entirely sure if this is going to be big enough, but no, it's definitely not. We're going to expand this a little bit. Now, as far as mounting the switch, we're going to run it through the back of this trim piece here. Alright, so go ahead and install that base plate, and now you can take one of those little kind of threading nuts, screw that in place. This is going to sandwich it together and hold our switch in place. So that works super awesome. I love how you have control over positioning it super easily. You can spin it, adjust it, and that looks great. So super happy about that. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and tuck these wires, this excess wire, kind of back behind the trim piece here, just so it's out of the way. So we're going to throw you guys back here, and then reinstall this just by pushing it back into place. Our switch is installed. Now for the important part, let's see if this thing works. So I just went ahead and reconnected our battery. When it's in the on position, it means that all of the electricity will be flowing, therefore the traction control is turned on. But we're gonna go ahead and start the SEQUOIA now and see if this thing works. Fingers crossed here. All right, so I'll show you guys the dash. Traction control light is right up here in the top left, so that's where you guys can watch. Again, switch is in the on position, starting it now. It's like, as you guys can see there, traction control is currently on. If it was off, these lights would be lit up here yellow, but they're not. I'm going to flip this switch down here and we'll see if the traction control light up here turns on, meaning that traction control has turned off. So I know it's counterintuitive, but the light comes on, that means traction control is off. So here we go, flipping the switch in 3, 2, 1. There we go, guys. Traction control has turned off. So switch is now in the off position. It's flipped down and the traction control lights did come on. So this is exactly what we were hoping for. Now what I'm curious about is if I flip the switch back to the on position, if traction control will turn back on. I don't think it will though. I'm pretty sure that you have to turn the car off and restart it for traction control to kind of reset and re-enable itself. So I'm going to flip the switch on. I just turned it on. Let's see. Yeah, nothing is happening. I'm going to turn the SEQUOIA off here. And then we're going to start it again. And there we go. Just like that, the lights went off, meaning that traction control has turned back on. So switch is working perfectly. All right, well, everything worked exactly how I had hoped there. The switch worked perfectly. It turns off traction control in just a second here. Now, the reason that I'm gonna like this so much is even though it only takes about a second to pop the hood, come out and unplug that connector, now two reasons. Now it's just even faster, and when it's super cold, when it's snowing, it just makes it that much easier and that much nicer to be able to turn it off from the inside. And the second reason, now that connector is always going to be plugged in, so we don't have to worry about snow or dirt or mud or moisture getting inside and messing it up when it's disconnected. So that is going to wrap it up for this one. I hope this video was helpful. If you guys have any comments or questions, please feel free to drop them in the comment section below, or you can message me on Instagram. My Instagram is linked in the description of this video. So thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.